Jan and Sarah, thank you for being with us in person, and thank you for joining the virtual audience as well. I'm really fortunate that I get to work with both of you, and I think I have a little bit better of an understanding of your work. But I also recognize that I'm not the guy in the trenches. I'm not the guy who's working with children and families on a daily basis. You two are. And so I think just to help provide a little bit of context, maybe insight into the work that you do, if we could start by just having each of you describe the work that you do every day, and Jan, we'll start with you.
Well, this year I'm in my 13th year as the homeless liaison for Fargo Public Schools. But what a lot of people don't know is that I'm part of a larger team. And what we do is we provide all the things that the kids need for school. Things like school clothes, school shoes, free and reduced or free lunch and breakfast, all of those things that they need to have to be successful in school. And then after that, because that's kind of the Band-Aid of the issue. After that, the hard work begins with referring our families out to the community so that we can help them get into stable housing.
Well, I think, Sarah, that's kind of a nice segue into some of the work you do as a community provider. You are working with these families in the community, so can you describe your role a little bit?
Absolutely. So I'm a homeless prevention and diversion program director at Presentation Partners in Housing, and I've been working with the homeless population in this area for the last 15 years. And so I get the pleasure of being able to work with families every day who are experiencing a housing crisis. Maybe they're already homeless or they are very much on the verge and about to lose their housing. And so we do everything possible to keep them in their housing if it's safe and appropriate for them to stay there, and connect people to housing options so that they can rebound from that housing crisis as quick as possible.
So, I just spoke about the overall numbers, that 1,022 of numbers of families and children who experience homelessness. But if we could drill down a little bit, maybe put some context around that. So, Jan, how many kids are homeless on a regular basis that you see?
Usually before we even start school, we have 60 to 70 kids that are self-referred and identified as homeless.
Wait, 60 to 70?
60 to 70.
And that's before, so like it's day one, right?
It's day one. And a lot of times those kids, some of them will need shoes before they can even come to school. So we're often running from the very beginning. By the end of the year last year, we had 237 kids identified that throughout the year at one point or another had experienced homelessness. A lot of people ask, where are these kids? Because they don't see them out in the public all the time. They might be doubled up. It could be in a safe place. It could be in a very unsafe place. They could be living in their cars, in tents. I have some that stay at hotels if they can round up enough money for the night. They're all over the place, in places where they shouldn't be. A lot of the unaccompanied youth at times will be in hallways or of apartments, all of those types of things. One of the hard things is that the kids are really worried when they're at school. It's like, are the parents going to be there after school? What are they doing? Are they safe? Where are we going to sleep tonight? What are we going to eat? And then the next thing is, if we're at a different spot, am I going to make it to school tomorrow? So it causes a lot of stress and trauma.
Well, I can't even imagine. I mean, just thinking about that and then being expected to do well in your normal core curriculum classes, or to even, what Christy just spoke about is having some hope. I mean, that's got to be a pretty daunting task for any person, if not impossible, when you're wondering, where am I going to sleep tonight? So we're working on preventing homelessness. We're working on that as a community for families and children. So when we talk about preventing homelessness from ever happening, that can seem kind of like a lofty goal, right? But what does that look like on a daily or even a weekly basis? And Sarah, if you could describe maybe some of the work that you do on a regular basis with these families.
Yeah, so we're really trying to shift the focus from managing homelessness to really preventing it and working upstream. We know that no one agency can end homelessness alone, and so we do this work in partnership with a lot of United Way partners, a lot of agencies in our community. So really what it looks like each week, we get together and review somewhere between 80 and 100 different applications from families who are in crisis, homeless, about to become homeless. We have the very tough job of trying to figure out which of those households we have the resources to provide assistance for. Of course, we prioritize those who are homeless, but we also use validated tools to help us determine if somebody loses their housing, who's most likely to become homeless and stay homeless as a result. That's where we draw our attention to. And so the families that we're able to provide resources for, which is only about a quarter of the applications that we receive, we have assistance for, we really try to do everything possible to help them resolve the crisis right away, but then get connected to resources that are going to help them stay housed for the long term.
So obviously, if you had more opportunity to work even on a bigger team, it might make your job a little bit more efficient, or even, make you a little bit more effective. I think too, when you talk about those families, can you describe a story or an example of what that looks like, for a family?
Yeah, so one story that comes to mind is a single mom in our community named Carla. And Carla and her daughter are a family that Jan hopefully will never have to get to know. Carla is a mom who was working but got diagnosed with cancer, and because of the treatment that she had to receive, she was not able to work, fell behind on rent. It was heartbreaking when she came home and saw an eviction notice taped to her door. She had told me with tears in her eyes that how was she supposed to pack up her and her daughter's belongings, find a new place to live with an eviction notice on the record now, of course, all the while trying to recover from treatment from cancer. And she's right, it's heartbreaking. And so I'm so glad that we had the resources, that we were able to make sure that she didn't lose her housing, connect her to those short-term assistance programs to help her stay housed, focus on just being a mom and getting through her health issues. So I'm so thankful that today Carla is able to be back at work, which is super important to her. She dropped her daughter off for her first day of school today. She's doing so much better. But there's a lot of Carlas and families like hers in our community. And so having more housing stability specialists would certainly allow us to help more families not have to experience homelessness.
Well, I think it's important that, again, we can talk about the research and data. We have really informed practices. We have really great partnerships, but it's focusing on these stories that's so important. And so, Jan, I want to just ask you too, when you think about the families and the youth that you serve, what's something that you see that you think maybe those in the audience watching online, what's something that they might not know about the families that you serve?
The families that I work with are awesome. The parents are working 1, 2, sometimes 3 jobs trying to make ends meet, do what they want to do, what's right and what they want to do to help their families. The kids are resilient. I have never seen such a group that can bounce back and keep wanting to do and keep going and make their life what they want it to be. So it's, when you see this, it'd be great if we could work together as a community to help families before they become the people that walk into my office or work with the other people that are serving our students that are experiencing homelessness. It's much easier to help them when they're in housing already than afterwards.
Well, I think you both just touched it, and you hit the nail on the head. It's resiliency. That our community is obviously experiencing that right now as we bounce back from the pandemic, but also in the struggles that you see every day with children and families. And so, first I want to say thank you. And as I think about then, where do we go from here? So we talk about these stories, we know it's important work. United Way's put this goal out in the community that by 2023, we're going to try and prevent 90% of families from ever experiencing homelessness. One, is it even possible? And two, Sarah, how do you see this unfolding locally, and what would it mean for our community?
It's absolutely possible. Homelessness is solvable. We have watched other communities embrace prevention efforts and really have an impact and move the needle towards slowing the inflow. It's all about slowing the inflow into our emergency response system, because our emergency shelters they do great, amazing things, but they are overburdened and there is a wait list for shelter. So we have to slow that down. And we know what it takes to do the work. We know we need more housing stability specialists in order to meet people at the very beginning of their crises, so it doesn't get further and more complicated and more costly to resolve. But really, it's about building that more robust homeless prevention system.
Since you said communities in other states, they've done this work. So again, it's not like we're just thinking this up out of the blue. It's taking best practices. Now it's using our local collaborative partnerships to really make this a reality.
Absolutely, yep.
So if we can actually rally and as a community come together to prevent homelessness, Jan, what would it mean for some of the families that you serve?
Oh my gosh, just the fact that they would be able to have stability. They'd know where they're going every day, where they're going to be. All of those things are very helpful for them. It's hard to get those phone calls from parents when they're about to be evicted and they don't know what to do, where do we go? it's hard to go home at night knowing that there's a family on the streets. So by having a place to go to, it would mean that they would be secure. Kids can think of their future, of what they're going to do for the day. Parents can go to work. They can do all the things that they need to do to help their families survive. All of those things, when you're stable in your housing, it's a huge piece for the development of children and for families to be healthy and successful.
It's hope, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, I think what this community is coming together to do is offer a little bit more hope that when there is a crisis, we can come together and support one another as neighbors. So Sarah, I'm gonna give you the last word here. So again, if we can actually meet our campaign goal this year and work really hard at doing that, coming together as a community, what is that gonna mean for our entire community?
It's going to mean less families who are having to figure out where they're sleeping tonight. We can keep families housed. We can feel like fairy godparents and be able to grant these very common sense approaches, but very doable responses, and keep more families housed. That will slow the inflow, and it will have ripple effects across our whole homeless response system. So year after year, we'll see less and less people experiencing homelessness. This goal is absolutely achievable.
I'm really encouraged to hear that. Thank you very much for being a collaborative partner in that. And again, we can't stop these bad things from happening. We're not preventing that. What we are doing is changing the way that we as a community can come together and meet the needs of these families, again, when those challenges are the greatest. So, Jan, Sarah, thank you so much for providing a little bit of the insight into the work that you do every day. And on behalf of myself, the team, our board, and the entire community, thank you for the work that you do on behalf of children and families.
Thank you.
Yeah.